Well, this is John Black, Super Chemist. We're on, I think, 28, part 28, I'm not sure. Is the deep state of monarchy. We're just going to go through this, and like I said, when I turn the page, the next page is going to blow your mind, okay? So you start out with Alfred the Great, right? He has a son, Edward the Elder. He has a son, Edmund the First. He has a son, Edward the Peaceful. He has a son, Ethelred the Unready. And keep in mind, some of these might be grandsons. I'm just saying sons. Then you got someone came in, the French took over for a little bit, and then Edward the Confessor, which is son of Ethelred the Unready. You know, they got their throne back, right? But after Edward the Confessor, the next guy, right, is called William the First, the Conqueror. He isn't a son. He switches things up here. He makes things weird now. He's a first cousin, right? But he's also ninth great grandson of Charlemagne. So at this point, William the Conqueror, you have his grandfather, right? Or, you know, great grandfather was Charlemagne, the king of the Franks, and also Alfred the Great, the first king of England. Okay, so this guy has both bloodlines in. Okay, first cousins with this guy, Alfred the Great, and a direct descendant. That's why I think Charlemagne is the most important. But he's the direct descendant, a ninth great grandson. Okay. Then what? We got William II, is son of this William I. I didn't put him on there because his kids didn't lead into anything. He died or whatever happened to him. Who knows? Probably this guy killed him. But this Henry I is also a son of William I. Okay. And he rules. Then you got Stephen, grandson of William I, right? The Conqueror. Then you got Matilda, granddaughter of William I. You'll see everyone's William I. Henry II, son of Matilda, right? Which would make him grandson of Henry I. Then you got Richard I, the lion-hearted son of Henry II. See how they're all Williams or Henrys, which is the same thing. Then you got John, son of Henry II again. Then you got Louis. I think he's like some kind of French king or whatever that came in. I don't know. He's not applicable. Then you got Henry III, son of John, right? John is right here. So they took back over the crown again, right? Then Edward I is the son of Henry III. And then you have a whole bunch of lines of just going through a bunch of, you know, Henrys and Richards and Edwards, and they lead to Henry the VIII, and then they eventually lead to Elizabeth I, and then that's where it gets weird, and I think the French take over for a little bit, you know, and sooner or later it goes back to Elizabeth I, right, which would be the line of these people, right? So that's one line, because I'm saying they don't want you to have, I mean, you can have just one line and you're still royal, but to be a mega royal, to be the top of the top, you need to have 4 bloodlines, okay? And that's just what I found. It's probably more. Yeah, I guarantee you there's at least 2 more bloodlines that, you know, that you could share and be royal to other royal, you know, like the Roman Empire and whatever. I'll get into that later. Anyways, let's turn the page and see what we got here, right? Now, I want you to remember, let me go back to this, all right? We went all the way down to here. Remember, here's Alfred the Great. We went down to here. We went to the William the Conqueror. He's only the first cousin to Alfred the Great, right? He's only the first cousin, so you might think that he ain't nothing, but you'll see when we get into this next page or whatever. All right. See if I can put that on there. Let's see. Okay. Now I want you to notice, this says first cousin right here. This is Edward the Confessor. That was the guy right before William the First, the Conqueror, right? And he is... Wait. Who is he? Anyways, I'll get into that later. He's first cousins, though, with Edward the First, right? Now I want you to notice this, what we got. We have 4 bloodlines, royal bloodlines, right? We got Alfred the Great. We got Charlemagne, King Robert, King Louis, and William the Conqueror, right? William the First. This guy over here is actually over here. If I had more paper, I would have brought that out. Like this would have been over here. You know what I mean? So you can see that it goes right to Charlemagne, because this is the same name. This name and this name are the same. You can see it goes to this king, it goes to this king, and it goes to this king by being first cousins. Right? So let's first look at King Robert the First, the Magnificent. He is the king of France. His wife is from France. They're royalty in France. And he has, these are all great grandchildren. They're not first cousins, okay? So he has 3 kids, right? Or 3 lines. One line leads to King Louis VI, and this is his 4th grandson. His 5th grandson is called William the Conqueror. Okay, remember him? William the Conqueror. He's part of this English line, right? And then the 3rd one that he had as a grandkid, his 8th great-grandson is Henry III. All these are great-grandsons of this guy, right? Henry III, Edward I, Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, Charles V from the Holy Roman Empire, Mary Stuart, the Queen of Scots, George Washington and George Clinton, that's the Vice President and President of the United States. George Washington was the first president. George Clinton was the 4th Vice President. Then you got Elizabeth II, right? And Princess Diana. And then you got King Charles III, and then his, Prince Harry and Prince William. It's all grandkids. And these numbers tell you what, like this is the 8th great-grandson, 9th great-grandson, 17th great-grandson. So you can look at it or whatever, okay? Now I want you to notice that King Roberts actually has 2. Because these are 2 different lines, right? This is to a different child, and this is through a different child. So you got 2 different lines. They're all grandchildren, though. This is the King Louis, and this guy, this Robert, he ruled between 1027 and 1035, and he was the king of Normandy. Normandy is Normandy, France. This is before France existed. So he's basically kind of the first king or one of the kings of France before France was France. Okay, this guy, he's actually king of France. This Louis the Sixth or whatever that is. Yeah, Sixth. He's actually, France existed at that time, and so he's the king of France, right? So we got one kid goes to, or grandkid, you know what I mean, becomes the king of France. You got one grandkid that becomes William the First and becomes king of England. And then you got this line here, and I don't know what line. They're all the same. They're both French. Both lines of these are French, right? So look at the things. They're all related to the same people. All the royal people in the future from these people, they're related to. Okay? Now let's look at Charlemagne. Charlemagne goes down, like we said, to this guy, William the Conqueror, who is the cousin to Edward I, the Confessor. Okay? And that's why he gets to be king. You know what I mean? Because I guess there's no sons or whatever, or grandsons, so he goes in. I also want you to see who else he is. He is this William the Conqueror is ninth great-grandson to Charlemagne. Also, King Louis VI is ninth great-grandson to Charlemagne. So Charlemagne comes in on all these whatevers. That's why I say Charlemagne is, I think, is the most important king out of all these kings to be related to. You know what I mean? And then you got Charlemagne coming down. Now these are just Charlemagne not going through these. Like Charlemagne has a lineage that goes, and keep in mind, these aren't cousins. They're all grandchildren, okay? You got one to go through William the First, the Conqueror, the UK King. You got one going through King Louis VI, the King of France, and you have one going here. This one is going, say, to America sooner or later, right? Whatever. And then you got the Alfred the Great, right? And you got William the Conqueror that should be over here because it would lead up to Charlemagne. But it also leads to Alfred the Great. But you noticed they're all related to these same people. That's why every time I look at these things, it goes back to like Henry VIII, Henry III, William I the Conqueror, Edward I. Why? Because because who they have the Henry III, Edward I, Henry VIII, Elizabeth I. They all have the same bloodline, and those bloodlines lead to four different people. They lead to William the Conqueror, which leads to Alfred the Great. It leads to William the Conqueror, which leads to Charlemagne, and also to King Robert's. You see what I'm saying? These were all grandkids. This is the line. This is the bloodline right here. The bloodline that holds these people. These names are the nine. And why do I say that? Because look where they lead to. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bloodlines, or 4 bloodlines, right? Where do they all lead to? They lead to George Washington. They lead to Elizabeth II, right? That's Princess Diana, and they lead to King Charles III, which is the king today. Obviously, the royal line that leads to the king, the current king, is obviously the most important line, right? Or he wouldn't be king, right? You know what I mean? It's like, you know? How much time did I last here? Alright, so I'm going to